just loading the video. Hold on. Okay, so anyways, so yeah, so it's a massive situation on a few levels. One level is just on a personal level, like just the fact that the journey is like taking me here, you know what I mean? It's like Nigeria, really? You know what I mean? So but it's massive on that front. And it's massive on that front. And also it's just a new reality. You know what I'm saying? It's a new reality. You know, the thing is, one of the big parts of the trip is, acclimating. I'm going to go through a whole ceremony there, and I'm going to become a member of the Igbo tribe again. Like coming back, get like a whole, they have a whole ceremony and in the whole Igbo name, whatever. But the thing is that the Igbo situation is like such a huge network. You know what I mean? I think there's like 200 million Igbos around the world and 50 million in just Nigeria. A lot of them are Christian. So it's not such a Jewish thing, but there is that component that's there in terms of understanding that. And so the thing is now I'm making the community and communities responsible for raising the funds for me coming there. Not just like the trip, but like I'm going to like I told you, shoot a documentary, like a lot of like handheld things, but it's going to be comprehensive. And then also I'm writing a book there on basically not as, I mean, the trip kind of, but more so the how to implement, these traditions inside of your house, right? So the different things. So it's like kind of like a Shulchan Aruch, in a way for people, and also a prayer book too. So like have a prayer book that's in English, and then be able to have Igbo transliterations, for people who want to do, some of those prayers. And it could be three parts, it could be Hebrew, English, and Igbo type of thing. Anyways, so yeah, so those are ideas. So like I'm just pushing that, you know what I mean? I'm pushing that, and I'm going back to the Igbo. So we'll see. I know we're gonna do it like so. I gave them two tiers. One is I need to raise 50,000 is one level, 150,000 is another level. The 50,000 basically allows me to go there, shoot the documentary, have a book that could be, have editors, whatever, fully, do the book. And then from there, just kind of like release it, release it on Amazon, whatever. You could package them together, whatever type of a thing. And then another 150 is much bigger, right? Because then I could do a much bigger production around it and then really shop it on a mainstream level and see who wants to purchase it and that type of thing, whatever. So anyway, we'll see with God's help. He's going to bring the right, situations for the whole thing, and we're going to have success. So I've already talked, and I had a great conversation with Rabbi Pinchas yesterday about it, Chief Rabbi Pinchas about it. And one of the things we did talk about was this idea of really, with this idea of Tinok Shenishba, right? Meaning that from the frame of Tinok Shenishba, it's like, there's going to be different tiers, right? There's going to be like a leadership tier, and then there's going to be, more of a community tier, meaning that there's going to be a lot of people that, that accept the fact that they're descendants of, Israelites. They're going to accept the idea how North America strategically kept that information away from us and use that to subjugate us and basically create low self-esteem culture, and allowed us to justify, the abuses, the genocide in many ways that has, been going against us. So it'll be those people. And those people, will say, hey, Shabbat, these different things, but they're not going to keep Shabbat. You know what I'm saying? And they're not going to do that. And it doesn't mean, it doesn't really matter, you know what I mean, in a lot of ways, unless you go through a process and take on the oath to keep all of that Torah. You know what I'm saying? But even if you're Tito Shanishba, I mean, yeah, we would encourage people to want to keep as much of the Torah, but that's not a destination. And a lot of the culture in Igbo land is not really based around the Talmud either.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So when we talk about incorporating, these cultures and these ideas in North America, hybriding them together, it's not it's not um it's not that, you know what I mean? It's not exactly Igbo and it's not exactly African American. It's a hybrid thing. You know what I'm saying? And so, anyways, long story short, so that's the focus, right? And the focus is going there and connecting and even becoming a chief too. You know what I mean? While I'm there by the Igbos. And then being able to organize that information and then that be part of the entry back to the United States, right? Because going that route allows the Rabbanut, myself, to be able to go to college campuses and talk to Black groups, Black study groups. The whole podcast thing opens up tremendously. It's just a huge connection point. You know what I mean? And it's a successful one, right? And so that's our that's the main idea. You know what I mean? Is to really be in that place. But I'm getting everybody involved. Zion Legs, all the podcast. We raising this money together, baby. You know what I mean? And this is just the beginning of many other projects, because one of the things, once we get this thing solidified, boom, campaign, fundraising, Pesach in Nigeria. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna still be there. You know what I mean? So it's a whole thing. So it's a very exciting time for me, and I'm really glad that me and Chief Robert Pinchas, he's always ahead. You know what I mean? He already made a prayer book. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's already on it. He did it in French. You know what I mean? Now, is it Igbo? He has to deal with the whole Bantu issue in all of Africa. So he's dealing with that collective, like 400 million people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's dealing with that, and he's a guy for it. But he's already there, and then he started a delegation of students, like close to 300 in France.
Okay.
Yeah, so he has a whole group of French people. A lot of people left Christianity and they know about him and they come, this sort of thing. The Kitzur. So anyway, so he's there, and he's moving forward. So this is just kind of like where everything is at. You know what I mean? Where everything is at, and anyway, so yeah, so it's like I said, it's a very exciting time. But anyways, so we're in Kav Hayashar. We're having a little talk always in the beginning. We're in Kav Hayashar. We're building tremendously in it. The Sefer is opening our hearts, opening our minds. I'm so glad I'm learning it with you, because I've been having. I mean, bits and pieces here, but like when you get the gift of learning with someone, is that you really have to focus in depth. We're in 13 or 14.
13. No, 14.
Yep, 14, yeah. Wow, we're covering ground. Oh, this is not, why isn't it English?
You might have to shift it. It should give you the options for both. It says just Hebrew or English, huh? Normally it
Yeah,
give
but
you the option for both of them. Mm-hmm. I wonder if mine's like that. Let me see.
it's not even the right thing. Hold on. Let me figure this out. Damn, what happened? Excuse my language. Hold on a second.
All right.
I don't know why the Hebrew's missing though. Is that everything like this right now? All right. Anyways, we're gonna have to. I don't know. I can't figure it out. Anyways, it's God's will. Maybe he wants to go faster. Who knows? We'll figure it out though. Maybe it's like some new feature or something. I don't know.
No, sometimes it updates. If it updates, things get a little weird for a minute.
Okay, that makes sense then. Okay, so it says like this. We're in chapter 14, Kav Hayasher. So it says like this. It is written, do not turn towards the do not turn towards the obscenity of his people and the wickedness of their sinfulness. This is in Devarim. This is explained in the Zohar in Parsha Kedushin. Come and see. When a man performs a mitzvah, it ascends and stands before the Holy One, blessed be. So every time we do a mitzvah, it goes up to the heavens. And the mitzvah says in front of God, so and so made me. The Holy One, blessed be he, appoints to it, it points, the Holy One, blessed be he appoints it to remain before him so that he will say, so it will lay upon his eyes the entire day and bestow goodness upon that person on account of it. If a person transgresses the Torah, that transgression ascends before the Holy One, blessed be he, and the Holy One, blessed be he, appoints it to remain in front of him, in front of his eyes, and do not remove to remove from his eyes and to remove the person from the world. This is the meaning of the verse, and Hashem saw and revealed. He says, and he saw and the transgression standing before him, if the person repents, and it is concerning him, if a person repents, and it is written concerning him that Hashem has also removed your sin, and you will not die. That is, he removes the transgression before him so that he will no longer look at it. This means that this is the meaning of the verse, do not turn towards the which is this? I just said it. I can't think of it. Because my mind is like going back and forth to Hebrew to English. So it's like, so anyways, the obscenity of his people and the wickedness of the wickedness and its sinfulness. So it's saying like this, is giving us a structure, this matrix, really frustrating the Hebrews on here, by the way, but it's giving us a structure, and it's saying that, okay, every time we do a mitzvah, we create an angel, right? And that angel goes all the way up. So this is the way the structure I learned from my teachers is like this. So you have four worlds. I think you know this. I'm just going to do it just to refresh it. So there's four worlds, right? So there's the world of emanation. There's the worlds of creation. There's the world of formation, and there's the world of action, right? In Hebrew, it's the world of Asilut, the world of Bria, the world of Yitzira, and the world of Asiya, right? Mm-hmm. And so what happens is in the world of action, which is the world we're in, the world of Asiya, every action, every mitzvah that we do creates an angel in the world of formation and the world of Yitzira. And then an angel in the world of Yitzira goes up to the world of Bria, the world of creation, and it takes an idea and an emotion, right? It's like almost like the angel goes to the supermarket and he takes an idea of an emotion off the shelves. And then it comes down into the world of Asiya, the world of action where you're at, and it implants an idea and it implants an emotion. So our emotional state and our thinking is a byproduct of action. That's why we have the idea that a mitzvah brings a mitzvah, an avera brings an avera. It's this type of idea. So they're saying, how does this system work? He's saying that when you do a mitzvah, it goes and it stands in front of Hashem and said, hey, Reuven made me, right? Reuven made me, right? And he's like, okay, great. So Hashem sees that, and this is all metaphorical, right? Like if a person's into JC, they'll be like, see, there's an interaction, right? So this is all understanding the interaction of energy, right? We're making connections to energy, right? And so the frame of the energy that we're talking about is expressing itself in this father component. And this father component is this father component is in essence, interacting with this energy. So you create energy, and that energy goes up into higher worlds, and then there's an energy that responds to it. So the way that we're understanding that is that there's a creator, which is the energy of this infinite world, and then our free will, which is expressed through this mitzvah. So they interact with each other, and it stands in front. So the same way when we committed Avera, that Avera also goes up to the heavens, because that's also, you just made a negative angel, and it also goes up to the upper worlds. And in this upper worlds, it's in this upper world, it stands before you in this whole thing. Okay. So it says like this: sometimes a person sits at home in peace, tranquility, feeling secure, happy, lighthearted. Meanwhile, he is totally unaware of the effect of his transgression on high. It stands there in the heavens, declaring, I am a product of so and so, provoking against him a sudden outpouring of bitter judgment and harsh decree. May heaven spares us. Eventually, he regrets his deeds, but by then it's too late, since the decree has already been issued. It is especially the case with regards to interpersonal crimes such as theft, fraud, and the like, because the guardian angel of the victim protests on the behalf in the heavenly court. So they're bringing out a whole nother thing now. So they're saying that, there are people that go out and they do things, they do illegal things, they rob, they steal, these types of things. And at the end of the day, they go home. They go home, they drink a beer, they smoke a joint, they watch television. And he's saying when that person is relaxing, he's not thinking about the things he did earlier. He doesn't realize that up in the heavens that there's a harsh decree being put out against them, right? And so he says, if you said earlier that if I transgress, I have this judgment on me. If I do a mitzvah, I have this judgment. So here they're saying, if you do harm for other people, not only do you create a negative angel, but the person that you did the crime against has a guardian angel, and that guardian angel goes up to the heavens and he protests against the individual. Pretty heavy, right? So he says, come and see, it's written in the Zohar, regarding one who withholds the wages of a worker and does not pay them. So they're bringing a story about a person who has workers and doesn't pay them. His punishment is particularly great because workers put his very soul into his laboratory and his craft. So whatever the employee do, he puts everything into it. So therefore, the employer who withholds his wages is as if he's holding and he's capturing the person's soul. So this is the interesting thing when you hear this. And capture the creative soul as well as the entire household. So when you think about that, when you think about this situation, I'm saying have in mind, what is the judgment that the slave master put on himself, right? So he says like this: every breath that comes out of the worker's mouth as he engaged in his craft, for it is usual for a worker to breathe heavily while working, ascends before the Holy One, blessed be he. That night, the soul of the worker and the members of the household who are dependent on those breaths ascend before the Holy One, blessed be he. And Hashem sees their breaths were not compensated for their efforts. In consequence, even the much blessing and success has been decreed for the employer. It is all taken away from him. Moreover, his soul is no longer allowed to ascend on high each night, all because he withheld from his workers their wages. This inequity also causes employers the life to be shortened. Heaven spare us. For this reason, Rav Hamanuna the elder was accustomed to pay his workers their wages the moment they finished their task, saying to them, "Take back your soul that you deposit with me." Even if the workers said to him, "Let it remain in your self-keeping," he would refuse, saying, "It is not fitting that you should deposit even your body in my care, let alone your soul. This deposit should be only left in the care of the Holy One, blessed be he, as it is written, into your hand I committed my spirit. He says this should serve as a stern warning. This should just serve as a stern warning to people. One who hears the workers weeping over his labor, even if he's not Jewish, and if he goes after his employee seeking wages of his toil, but the latter closes his ears, refusing to listen to him and telling him to come back another time, there can be no greater desecration of God's name in the heavens than this. His punishment will be swift in coming, and his property will be irreverently lost. Even if currently he enjoys the generous income, prosperity, and success, it would not remain with him. Ultimately, he will undoubtedly be impoverished, and no one will take pity upon him. Many other afflictions are also brought upon by this sin. Therefore, one must be extremely careful not to stumble in sin of withholding a worker's wages. It's pretty heavy stuff, no?
Mm-hmm.
So he says, let us now return to the subject at hand, which we begin. Whenever a person performs a mitzvah, an angel is formed from it, which pleads continually on his behalf. Thus, the sages teach in Midrash Rabbah, in Parsha Vayikra, if a person did a single mitzvah, he is granted a single angel to protect him. If he does two mitzvahs, he is granted two angels. And it is written as it's written in Tehillim, for he will appoint his angels on your behalf. The expression he granted indicates that from the mitzvahs that the person performed, these angels are fashioned to protect him from harm. Come and see an incident illustrating this principle. A pious man lived in a small village, and there were no books to be found with the exceptions of a single volume of Tractate Chagiga. All his life, the pious man pondered over this text. He lived to a ripe age, and then right before he died, the Tractate Chagiga appeared to him in the form of a woman. Okay. After his death, this form went before him and brought him into Gan Eden. Wow, that's crazy. And he says, conversely is also true. Heaven forbid, if a person commits a single transgression, one accuser is created. If he commits two transgressions, the two accusers are created. And then after he dies, it takes the form of a woman and leads him to Gehenna. And listen to this. He says, and thus the Torah tells us that Yosef, refusing to listen to Potiphar's wife, the pasuk says, to lie with her, to be with her. The sages explain, to lie with her means in this world, to be with her is in the next world, the world to come. The boys tore that up, didn't they? And so he says, I once read an explanation of this. When a man commits adultery, a malignant spirit is created in the form of a woman with whom he strays. Then, when his time comes to leave this world, she wraps herself around him and drags him down to Gehenna. Oh my goodness. It seems to me that this is what the sages are alluding to when they say, in the future, the Holy One, blessed be He, will bestow upon every righteous man 310 worlds, as it is written to those who love me to inherit substance. And he says the word yeish, substance. That's not a substance. It has the same numerical value of 310. I have heard this passage explained as follows. As we have already mentioned, when a man does a single mitzvah, a single angel is created. The sages tell us in Masechet Chulin that each angel is two parsios across, like the size of it. It's like two. So they're saying these angels are like 2 miles. One angel, what he says two angels are two. So one parsha is two 2 miles and almost 3 miles long. This is how big an angel is.
Mm.
As it is written, in its body is like the sea of the thesaurus, says in Daniel. According to the tradition, this sea has is 2 patriots wide. So he's saying there's 2 miles high. Okay, and he says parsos wide. How long is the parsos? So he says now altogether there's 316 precepts and the 7 rabbinical enactments totaling 620, the numerical value of the word keser, crown, or keter, crown. He says, therefore, when a Jewish person keeps the entire Torah, including the rabbinical injunction, he acquires 620 angels. Wow, that's good to know. Now in this world, Israel has a legal status of almana, like a person, like a widow. He says, thus the verse in Icha reads, "How does she sit in solitude? The city is teeming with people, has become like an alma." And he says, and this word is derived from a denotation of the word mana, which is what equals 100, which is the amount guaranteed, 100 Zeus, which is the amount guaranteed guaranteed to a widow in the ketubah. I hear that in her marriage contract when she in her marriage contract when she remarries in the future. However, Israel will again have the status of a virgin bride, as it is written also, the virgin, it says, and arise, O virgin of Israel. A virgin is guaranteed the 200 Zeus, but Israel will receive on top of this an additional third, reckoning from outside. So that the addition comprises a third of the possible. Now the sages tell us in the Midrash Rabbah, that 3 angels comprise the entire world, each of which comprise of 2,000 parsos wide, and a world is only 6,000 parsos in demeanor. So therefore, the 600 angels equal 200 worlds. It's mathematic, no? And he says the additional 20 angels comprise another 6 and 2/3 of a world. If one adds a third on the outside to the 200, it comes to 300, and if one adds the third to the 6 worlds, it comes to 9. Finally, if one ends at a third of the remaining 2/3, and it comes to a single world for the total of 310 worlds, may should be married. So this is something that, like, you're gonna have to go back over and go over the numbers. It's not like such a passion point right now for me, but anyways, so that's the idea, right? The idea is to say that we are creating angels all the time. When we see the thing with by Yaakov in this week's Parsha, right? We have to understand, like, no, this is a real thing. We're creating angels, right? And it's happening right now, right? And so this idea of being able to take accountability, right? And to be able to show, to be able to show this connection. I may actually use this tonight. I think I'm doing the thing with Zion Lex tonight. But, I think I may bring what we're learning right now. Anyway, just as a way to kind of understand this idea of creating reality, right? Anyways, but Kitzur is like this. The point is like this, is to say that we're creating angels all the time, and we got to own that. You know what I mean? And we have to own that our ideas, the ideas and the concepts and everything that we function on. Hold on. Okay, so we're back in the Hanukkah, and so we want to understand it. Yesterday we went into the Hanukkah, right? In the menorah, we were able to have that clarity to understand, like, wait, the menorah is in the Torah. The menorah was one of the essential parts that was used inside of the Mishkan, right? This was the element of the first house of the Shekhinah, right? For a community, this dynamic was brought down to the Jewish people after Matan Torah, and the vision that God gave to Moshe Rabbeinu in terms of fixtures, one of which was this mezuzah. I mean, this menorah, right? And so this dynamic of the menorah, we went into the structure of the menorah, how it was directly there in Deraisa, all the different parts, and then we learned about this idea of the oil, right? And the olive oil and the different levels of olive oil. You left a great drush, and but that's the idea, right? Is to be able to understand what's going on, is understand that everything has a divine connection. So when a person is putting, when a person has the oil, right? This year I may even get olive oil. You know what I mean? Like, I think in the past, I don't know. I don't know if the other oils that they come with are actually olive oil. I don't know, but I think I'm gonna make an effort to try to find olive oil for the candles. But the point is just saying that, because I usually, they have these things, they have these package in Israel, already have a Hanukkah, but they already have everything set up. They got the oil already placed there. They got the wick there. All you gotta do is just place it there. You light it, boom, ready to go. So I don't know if they have some, if they have olive oil internal, that may be something I do. But nevertheless, the point is, we'll see when we get closer to it. But the point is just saying that, so we went into that structure. And so every aspect of the Hanukkah, the menorah, is something that is not of this world. It's out of this world. It's a whole nother device. We think we understand it, right? And we do at the level we can, but it just keeps going and going. So what we want to do today, were you going to say something? Yeah. So what we want to do today is this idea of going into seeing the rabbinical literature, right? Because the main thing about this lesson is not so much about you're going to memorize everything about Hanukkah in this first conversation or these conversations we have, but it's more so having a structure of how to prepare for the holidays through learning, right? To be able to go inside of the sources, to be able to have a clear understanding of every aspect that's going on, right? And to be so clear in every aspect that's going on that when you time, like, when I got married, the year before that I got married, pretty much most of that year we spent learning Masechta Kedushin. So he was saying how the Masechta Chagiga, in the last story, the guy basically in Chagiga, the guy basically read, I mean, in the story that we read, this guy had such a relationship with the Sefer, it's the only Sefer they had, so he read it in and out. He knew it like base probably ball pay. He said the Sefer was what elevated him to that next world, right? So that elevation to the next world came through the Sefer, right? It came through the avoda of the Sefer. So over here, we're understanding that there's a connection. So in the same way, the year before I got married, not before, but like literally like that, the year of me getting married, we were, no, not the, we switched Masechtas right then, but the year before, not the year before, but the Masechta that we were learning before was Kedushin, what was marriage. Bro, I was so focused on getting married. I was learning I was so inside of it, like almost like I was getting married, And I remember when I was standing in the chuppah under my wedding, all the halakot of what I was learning were like being played, and I was going through the sugyas in my head. Right? When I was under the chuppah, I was going through the different, everything that she was doing, everything that the Masada Kedushin, everything was just all things at stake. So we want to have those experiences all the time. And the way that we get to that place is by the way that we get to that place is through learning, right? And it's been the tradition for thousands of years, right? And so over here, we want to understand Hanukkah. We want to build a relationship with Hanukkah. We want to build a relationship with. We want to build a relationship with. We want to build a relationship with every aspect of the Yom Tov, all the mitzvahs, everything. And how do you build a relationship? Through knowing, right?
Mhm.
It's like I was telling the guys yesterday. I was talking to a group of guys, and I was saying to them, I was like, "Hey, you know what? You know what? When you're dating a woman, right? Because we're talking about the power of definitions. When you're
Mhm.
dating a woman, what is the basis of dating? The basis of dating is coming to a conclusion of definitions, right? How we define things, how we understand things, how we understand how does she define love? How does she define her future? How does she define success? How does she define a husband? How did she define these things? And based off of if we can make a kinyan, a relationship from these
Mhm.
shared definitions, then we have a relationship. But
Mhm.
if we don't focus on those definitions and we just focus on the external words, like, yeah, I just want to grow with a person. That's a popular thing you hear in Jewish dating. I want
Mhm.
to grow. I'm very growth orientated. What does that mean?
Mhm.
That could mean something totally different for me versus her,
Mhm.
right? And so from that place, is where we have to do inquiry, right? And we got to be able to sit back and say, hey, you know what? Um, I hear what she's saying, but the way she understands growth is not by me, or it is, right?
Mhm.
And so that's the idea. So over here, we understand that understanding and having the same definitions is how you build a relationship. So when we're learning the Gemara, when we're learning the Halacha, when we're learning the Chumash, when we're learning the Midrashim, we're learning more to build that relationship with who? Hashem, right? And so we're going through this whole process because Hashem is beyond our imagination, beyond logic. So we understand Hashem through his attributes. So by building a close relationship with the Yom Tov, by knowing as much as you can inside and out about the Yom Tov, and you connect to that power, the Kedusha, right? Because you have a clean vessel for
Mhm.
this through the learning, right? That you connect to this awesome power, this awesome light, and you take yourself to the next level. Okay, so let's keep going. We're a little bit ahead of time, I think, because we ain't had no Hebrew. All right,
Yeah.
so anyway, so we got again. I don't know what I got to change on my thing. I need all the Hebrews gone. Okay, so we got to fix this. We'll get there though. So he says like this. Maybe it's easier to learn this way, right? So he says like this. The Gemara asks the question, what is Hanukkah? And why are candles lit on Hanukkah? Fair question. The Gemara answers. The sages taught in Megillat Tanit, right? Fasting. On the 25th of Kislev, the day of Hanukkah are 8. One must not One may not utilize on them, and one may not fast on them. So on these days, they're creating they're saying on these days it's the sages taught that on these days you're not allowed to mourn, right? This is what I'm understanding. Eulogizing is being as mourning, and then also not you're not able you may not fast. What's the reason? When the Greeks entered the temple, when the Greeks entered the sanctuary, they defiled all the oils that were in the sanctuary by touching them. Interesting. So when the Greeks came in, they defiled everything. And when the Hashmoneans, the monarchy, overcame them and emerged victorious over them, which is the Maccabees, they searched and found only one first, I don't know, of oil that was placed with a seal of a high priest, undisturbed by the Greeks. So they're saying, okay, so the Greeks came, the Greeks came, took over the temple, and they went in the temple, defiled it, touched it with their gross goyish hands, and they defiled it, right? Who knows what else they did to it? But the point is insane. But when when the Hashmonean monarchy, when they came and defeated them, they went in the temple and they couldn't find any oil except for one, and there was one left, and it was untouched by the Greeks, or one that was untouched by the Greeks, and there was a significant oil there to light the cherubim for one day, right? A miracle occurred, and they lit the cherubim, and it lasted 8 days. The next year, the sages instituted those days and made them holidays with the recitation of Halal, which we're going to learn about, and a special Thanksgiving prayer and blessing. So this is kind of like this is how the Gemara goes into that conversation, right? And so so we're going to read a little bit of from the Masechet Tanit that talks about this,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's kind of like saying it over again. Hold on one second. Let me think this out. Okay, so we had that dilemma, right? And of that dilemma of okay, why do we do Hanukkah in that way, right? Hold
Mm-hmm.
on one second. All right, so we're gonna read some more Gemara. I forgot this Hebrew thing. All right. Hold on one second. Hold on. There's a better way to do it. Wait. Hold on a second. Because it is I just want to focus on specific. All right. So anyways, we're just gonna fly through it. I mean everything may not be but either way, the point is we gotta learn how to learn anyways. So okay, let me bring the screen back. So we're just gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going, and so we're just gonna continue on with this discussion in the Gemara, right? Because this is important. I mean, like if you're, this is it. This is the learning. So
Mm-hmm.
okay, so anyway, so we learned that there's this extra halal and the prayer giving. Okay, we must learn in the Mishnah that regards to damages. Okay, that in case a spark that emerged under a hammer and went into an artisan's house and caused damage, the one who struck the hammer is liable. Similarly, in the case of a camel that laden with flax and it passed through a public domain and its flax entered into a store and caught fire, the storekeeper, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're skipping over that. Okay, so he says like this. Rob Yehuda says, if the flax was set on fire by the storekeeper's Hanukkah lamp that he placed outside the entrance to his store, is he not liable? As in the case of the storekeeper? Okay, so maybe we need to go back to the case. All right, fine. It builds off of each other. Fine. Okay, so anyways, so he's bringing a scenario now, right? So this is how the Gemara works. So we just learned the Gemara asks this question, which is connected to a whole bunch of other discussions before that. And basically, we're in Masechet Shabbos 21b, and so the idea here is to say that we learn this. So what the Gemara is going to do now is that the Gemara is going to create a scenario to teach a principle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's doing now. So here it talks about this idea of basically someone inadvertently damaging something, right? So if you have a hammer and a spark, and you're hammering something outside, and then that spark that you do catches a flame, and then the whole house or all the work goes down, who's at fault, right? And so he brings another example of a camel that is laden with flax, and it passes. Hold on one second. All right. Anyways, so it says it says a flax that goes in, right? So he says it caught fire from the storekeeper's lamp, Okay, interesting. Okay, similar, a camel is laden with flax, and it passed through a public domain, and its flax entered into a store, and caught fire from the storekeeper's lamp, and set a fire in the building, and the camel's owner, the camel's owner is liable, since the flax entered into another domain which had no promise, no permission to enter. All the damages are caused due to his neglect. However, if the storekeeper places his lamp outside the store and its fire to the flax, the storekeeper is liable, as the lamp is outside his domain where he's at. Okay, so the point is like this. He's saying that, so basically the Gemara is basically talking about, he's creating a scenario since the flag entered into the domain, right? And he had no permission to enter. So he's saying like this. So imagine you have this like big animal and it has all this stuff hanging off of it, right? Whatever it is, maybe it's some type of jewelry, something, they dress the elephants up, whatever. And it walks through a public area, and it goes through this public area, and then like say its tail or trunk or something hanging from it goes inside of an open store type of thing, like an open tent, and it knocks over a lamp, right? It knocks over a lamp, and then everything, catches on fire. And so he says that the person who has this camel, I use the example of an elephant, but the person who has this camel is liable. And why is that person liable? Because the lamp itself was inside of the storekeeper's place, right? It was inside of the storekeeper place. So that means that it had to go, the animals had to go inside, or whatever was extended from the animals had to go inside of a private domain, right? That's why it makes the issue of public domain, because that's the whole thing. Rashusha Robin, the whole thing is like public domain versus private domain. It's a whole study. We spent like almost a half a year on it. But it's this idea of understanding the difference between public and private. And so here in the different legal ramifications between that. So over here, it's saying that because it basically invaded his private space, then the person who has the camel is liable. But because he said because he had no he had no permissions to enter. So all the damage were caused by the negligence. However, if the storekeeper placed the lamp outside of the store in the public domain of the store and it set fire, the storekeeper is liable, as he placed the lamp outside the domain where he had no right to place it. Does that make sense? Okay. So now Rabbi Yehuda asked a question. If the flag was set on a fire of a storekeeper's Hanukkah lamp that he placed outside the entrance to his store, he is not liable in that case, as it is permitted for the storekeeper to place a lamp outside. Okay, so it sounds like a little bit of a contradiction, right? Like, because he just said, however, if the storekeeper placed the lamp outside the store and it's set on fire, it's the storekeeper's liable because he placed it in the public domain. So why is Rabbi Yehuda saying over here that the storekeeper who has a Hanukkah lamp outside of his door and it gets knocked down, he's not liable? He says, as in the case permitted for the score, as in that case, it is permitted for the storekeeper to place his lamp outside. So I guess he's saying that because it's a Hanukkah lamp, and the Hanukkah should be outside, right? It should be seen. Some people put it in the window, some people put it in front of their house. In Israel, Jerusalem, people put it in front of their house. And so he says because it is because I'm assuming, okay, it's not clear why. I'm assuming this is why he's saying it's not liable. Ravina says in the name of Rabbah, right? Because he's saying in the name of his teacher. He's telling me he's giving over the tradition that he learned, that it is to say that it is a mitzvah to place the Hanukkah within 10 hairbreadths of the ground, as it should be into your mind to say that he may place it above 10 hairbreadths. Why is the storekeeper exempt? Let's see the camel owner say to the storekeeper. So he's saying over here that the halakha says that it has to be like, say, 10, 10 or 15, what's a 10 inches hairbrush. How do you define hairbrush? All right. Anyways, it's similar to what I was saying. So it's basically saying because it's basically all right. So he's saying because it's a specific coordinate, right? That the Hanukkah has to be placed at it, not just put it in front, but it has to be placed at a certain level. That it's not in the same dynamic of a storekeeper who was negligent because there's rules connected to this Hanukkah and how it should be structured. It gives it a different status than just leaving it outside and something happens. Let's see if I'm right. So it says, why is the storekeeper exempt? Let the camel owner say to the storekeeper, you should have placed the lamp at the height of the camel and the riders, and then there's no damage. And by failing to do so, the storekeeper caused damage and should not be liable, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so he's saying like this. This is where the Gemara you have to work. So it's like this. So he's saying that, well, if you're saying that because he put it at this certain height, that he's exempt because of he hasn't put his height, he's exempt. So he says, why not stay it by the other case with the camel, right? He says, let the camel owner. The camel owner could have went to the person who owns the place and says the lamp. He said you should have placed the lamp at at my height. Then there would have been no damages. It wouldn't have just randomly get hit. And by failing to do so, the storekeeper caused the damage, and the camel owner should not be liable. So you hear the issue? You're arguing against this case. The Gemara rejects this, and perhaps one is also permitted to place the Hanukkah lamp above 10 hairbreadths. And the reason Rav Yehuda exempt the storekeeper was due to the concern for the observance of the mitzvah of kindling the candle. He held that if you burden one excessively, he will refrain from performing the mitzvah of kindling of the candle. And so he says, since the storekeeper placed the Hanukkah lamp outside outside at the behest of the sages, the storekeeper should not require to take extra precautions. It's amazing, right? So anyway, so basically, it's a mitzvah to do it, and so therefore, placing it outside is not a form of negligence. It's an extension, I guess, of the building at that point, and that's it. Okay. So he says a Hanukkah lamp that one placed above 20 cubits is invalid, just as a sukkah whose roofing is more than 20 cubits high. And just as in an alleyway, those beams is symbolic fourth pretension in order to place the e-roof is more than 20 feet are invalid. So basically, we're learning the structure. See how the Gemara is teaching? We're going over every detail of this thing. So he's saying, so now we're learning about the liability of the Hanukkah. And this liability, we understood it through this frame of it can't be more than 10 hair breadths, right? Hair braids, 10 hair braids, right? And so it's bringing an example that if you place it above 20 cubits, right, it is invalid. See what they come with the evidence. Since the eye will not master noticing things above 20 cubits, there will not be a publication of the miracle. Interesting. And he says the sukkah, he says we learned it explicitly. Okay, they're invalid. Okay, so he's basically saying we can have it if you have it above 20, it's invalid. Just like a sukkah, just like the air roof, all these different things. He's giving examples. The reason is the same for all three cases. That's interesting. So now he's saying having a sukkah that has a roof of 20 cubits and just as an alleyways with beams, the fourth partition for a roof. Okay. The reason is the same for all three cases. People do not usually raise their heads above to see the object at a height above 20 cubits. So as there is a requirement to see all the things, they are deemed invalid when placed above that height. And the Gemara cites another statement that Rav Kahana says that Rav Natan Bar Mani Mumi, whatever, taught in the name of Rav Tahum. What is the meaning of the verse in regards to Yosef? They took him and cast him in the pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. By reference from that which is stated, the pit was completely empty. I don't know that there was no water in it. Rather, why does the verse say there was no water in it? The verse comes to emphasize, to teach us that there was no water in it, but there were snakes and scorpions in it. Okay. He says, Rabba says that it's a mitzvah to place the Hanukkah within a hairbreadth of the adjacent to the entrance. So he's going into that. So he says, the Gemara asks, and where on which side does he place it? There is a different opinion. The Rav Aha, son of Rava, said on the right side of the entrance. Rav Shmuel from Didiv said on the left side. The halakha is to place it on the left side, so the Hanukkah lamp will be on the left and the mezuzah will be on the right. One who enters a house will be surrounded by mitzvot. So it continues on. Rav said to Yehuda, Rav Yehuda said to Rav Ashi, it said that Rav said it is prohibited to count money opposite a Hanukkah light. Rav Yehuda relates. If when I say this halakha before Shmuel, he said to me, "Does the halakha light have sanctity? What would prohibit us from using its light?" Rav Yehuda strongly objects to this question. What kind of question is that? Does the blood of a slaughtered undomestic animal or fowl have sanctity? It is taught in the Brisa that the sages interpret the words, "He shall spill blood over it with dust, with which he has spilled, he shall cover." Just as a person spills blood on a spilled blood of a slaughtered animal with hand, so too he's obligated to cover the blood with his hands and not cover it with his foot. The reason is so that the mitzvah would not be contemplating. Oh, man, I can't talk. Contempl. It won't. Let's see how they spell it. Here too, one could treat Hanukkah lights as if they were scarce and refrain from utilizing them for other purposes, so that the mitzvah would not be complicated to him, or like, so basically they're saying like the fire itself has a sanctity, right? You don't want to use the fire and say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna turn off all the lights and I'm gonna read a book. No, you know, the fire in itself is holy. It's something not to be used, but something to be reflected upon, right? The Gemara relates that they raise a dilemma from Rav Yossi ben Levi. What is the halakha with regards to the decorating of a sukkah of all 7 days of the festival? He said to them, they already said in a similar vein that it's prohibited to count money in opposite Hanukkah lights, which proves that one may not use the object of the mitzvah for another purpose. Rav, so that's the key point. That's the key. That's the point. That's the ikar. So the point is saying the holiness of the light is it, and not using it for any other purpose is basically saying that the light in itself is a mitzvah. So I'm not going to use this mitzvah for another reason, like a person taking their lulav, right, and using it to like sweep the floor. You know what I'm saying? Not something you're going to do. So he says, Rav Yosef replied in surprise, Master of Hashem, he makes that which he taught dependent upon that which was not taught. As it is regards to the sukkah, the prohibition to enjoy use of its decorations, is taught. So they're asking an interesting question. If you're not supposed to use something for a mitzvah for another reason, how do we understand the sukkah and the fact that we can put decorations on the sukkah for all 7 days, right? So the decorations was taught in a brisa, in the prohibition to enjoy the light of the Hanukkah was not in the brisa as well. He says it was taught in the Tosfos in Tractate Sukkah, which regards one's roof as a sukkah in accordance with the halakha requirements, and decorated it with colorful curtains and sheets and ordnance and nuts, peaches, almonds, pomegranates, grapes, and wealths of stalks and grain and wine and oil in the vessel full of flour. It is prohibited to use them until the conclusion of the day of the festival. You can't use them; they're just there. You understand? Like, so he's saying, like, it's not like you could use them for other purposes. They're stam there for the decoration. In the same way, the fire is there just for the fire. It's not that you're adding to the mitzvah or you're using the mitzvah, the sukkah, for something else, but rather it's a part of the sukkah. So he says he stipulated with regards to them, and it will be permitted to use them during the festival. Everything is according to his stipulation, and he is permitted to use them. In any case, since the prohibition to benefit from Hanukkah light is not explicitly taught, a proof should be cited from there to resolve the dilemma. With regards to the sukkah decoration, rather, Rav Yossi said, there is no need to bring proof for the halakha for sukkah from Hanukkah lights. Rather, the paradigm of them is all blood. The verse regarding covering the blood of the slaughtered animal, the origin source of it is the prohibition to treat a mitzvah with contempt. With contempt is derived. Okay, it is also say so over here. It's just so over here. This last point is really just bringing in this idea of understanding, like, so if we say like this, if you say it's an interesting thought. So you say like this. So my rabbi says that I cannot use a fire for anything else, right? And then the friend says, in response to that, he says, "Oh, he said you can't use it for any other use." He said, "Really?" He says, "Well, why can't you use it for any other use?" He said, "Because the fire itself is a mitzvah, and the mitzvah can only be used for that one thing. You can't use it for something else, right? You can't use the fire to, look at the fire of the Hanukkah to look underneath your cabinets to see, if there's, whatever, a clog in your pipes. But the point is just saying is, the point is just saying that you can't use it for that. You can't use a mitzvah for something else. And he says, well, what do you mean you can't use it for something else? He says, my rabbi taught me that on sukkah, I can, we build a sukkah and I can put decorations on it, right? So if I can, I'm adding to that. I'm using the mitzvah. I'm using the sukkah for these decorations. So how could your rabbi say you can't use a mitzvah for something else? Well, now it's clearly that you go to any house in Jerusalem on Sukkot, and everybody, everybody has decorations. But the mitzvah is the sukkah itself. The mitzvah is not the decorations. That's something that I'm using it for, or something that's there. And he says, no, you can't learn it that way. He said, the reason why you can't learn it that way, he said, because the mitzvah or the idea of adding decorations is part of the description of the sukkah in Masechta Shabbat, in the Gemara, in the Talmud. It's a part of the understanding of what sukkah is. And so therefore, it's not an additional idea. As where if you use the fire for Hanukkah to read a book or to search the house, with the lights off, then you're using that flame for something else, right? In something that's not mentioned ever, right? So that's the point over there. So so it's stated there's a dispute from the Amraim, right? And the Amraim, as we know, are the generations after the Tanaim, right? Which are at a lower level than the Tanaim, which was like Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Meir, all those humongous people are Tanaim. So this is the Amoraim. And so Rav and Shmuel, famous Amoraim, and a lot of the teachings come from Rav and Shmuel. So it says like this. So Rav said, one may not light from the Hanukkah lamp to another lamp. And Shmuel says, one may light in a manner, in that manner. So if you have two Hanukkahs, like you see some houses have like multiple menorahs, right? They got kids, people lighting their own, different people live in the household, whatever. So they do it. So when it comes to lighting one candle to another, or using one may not use the light from one Hanukkah lamp to another, right? That's what Rob said. But Shmuel says, no, I disagree with that. You can, right? So like if a brother and sister, they said, I want my own Hanukkah too. They want to get used to the mitzvah. They're excited. They've been learning about it in the school. So they want to do it, right? And so you have the kids have it, or say you have people who live downstairs. Like you have these big houses, and you have people who live downstairs, and they pay rent too. It's like a separate thing. But when it comes to Hanukkah, they have to come upstairs and do it in front of the doorway, just like you, right? So the question is, can you use their fire to light your fire, or vice versa? Rav says no. Shmuel says yes. And he says the Gemara cites an additional dispute against Rav and Shmuel. Rav says one may not unite ritual fringes from one's garment in order to fix them to another garment. Okay. And Shmuel said one may unite them from one garment to another and affix them as another garment. Okay, fine. The Rav says the halakha is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon in the case of dragging. Rabbi Shimon permitted dragging objects on Shabbat if one. This is going into a way deeper thing. If one drags the ground on Shabbat, it is not the person's intent to drag one. So okay, I'm just going to read this and we'll stop here. So Rabbi Shimon permitted dragging objects on Shabbat even if, as a result, a furrow would be dug in the ground. Like say like you're dragging something and there's like, it's like moving dirt and it's like leaving like holes everywhere. As it was not the intent to drag that hole. So he says, and Shmuel says that halakha is in accordance to Rabbi Philip. We'll get more into this because this is another thing about the Gemara. So to be clear on what's being said, we have to go back into those cases. Right? We have to go back into the case of dragging. We got to go paste in these other disputes between Rav and Shmuel. And we have to go into those conversations and see those conversations and the commentaries on the conversations to be clear about what's going on as it relates to what's going on in the sugya. But if you don't know how to learn, you're just reading that and it's just like, okay, they say like, blah, blah, keep going. No, you have to go all the way and find where those discussions are at, and you have to go in it. You have to go in depth, right? And then from there, you're in a position to understand what the Gemara is trying to convey, what the argument is, and what the end result. Now, a lot of the end results we learn from the Rishonim, through Tosfos, through Rashi, and eventually to the Shulchan Aruch, right? So it continues to build out. So it starts in the Torah, as you see. You see, it starts in the Torah, the whole thing, the Hanukkah, the lights, the whole thing. And so it starts in the Torah. This is Deraisa. It's written in the text, right? And so from there, we learn the discussions about every detail of it. And this is the thing. How do you know how to do these things? I'm just saying, like a person say, oh, well, I don't want to listen to the rabbis. I just want to do it. Okay, so you're going to do by Hanukkah. So how's your menorah look? Oh, well, I'm just going to go to the store and buy the one that the Jews buy. But how do you know it's right? You don't care because the Jews are doing it? So if you don't care the Jews are doing it, why would you not know the source where they're getting information from? Right? And then how is it placed in the house? What type of oil do you use? How do you light it? Right? All these things have to be discussed. And it's like, if you don't have if you don't have a tradition, how do you do it? Right? And then you start making stuff up on the fly. Right? You've seen this. Anyways, so let's do this. I got a bunch. We're running around. I can see you running around too. let's continue tomorrow, B'vat Hashem. We'll continue on this journey with Kav Hayasher and this understanding of today. We're going to be very aware of our mitzvahs and our veras and how they have a life on their own, and Hashem sees them. And we should think about the tshuva. And it's something you reminded me of when we were learning a sugya about our speech and how much Torah I said, oh man, how much Torah did I give away, by this and that. But you're right. As soon as we have intention to speak correctly, we get it all back. Right? And so we should have that in mind, that every time we make tshuva, anytime we think about something I did, even if it was years ago, you just do tshuva. Hashem, I'm sorry. I don't want to do it ever again. I was thinking crazy. I wasn't connected. I didn't have a Torah. I was influenced by the system. Not to make excuses, but it's the truth, right? That I've been indoctrinated by it. I've been in captivity, punished, brutalized, my family, my grandparents, on and on. So I made bad mistakes, but now I'm with your Torah and I know better. And so knowing better is the main thing, right? And so by knowing better, we could have success. So anyway, so we should forgive ourselves for mistakes we made, errors we made, and restrict, even like something small, like a guy sees an attractive woman walk down the street. Now he sees her walking, and he sees her, and he says, okay, he saw it, and he looks away. But he's so tempted to see her walk past him because he wants to see her from behind. And he says, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to restrict that. It's like, well, it's such a small thing. No, you just corrected your eyes. You just fixed your eyes from all the impurity. So when we make these courageous steps, we are able to fix parts of ourselves that we wouldn't have been able to fix, without maybe the mistakes. So that's when they say all of our mistakes turn into mitzvot. So anyways, be blessed. Continue to be blessed. We're going to continue on with this. Baruch atah Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen. So we'll be in touch. Kol tuv.